So I'm really excited to do this podcast with my friend Brooke because our personalities, let's face it, are amazing. And you're going to hear a lot of cackles and a lot of stories about us. So I hope you stay and I hope you enjoy this podcast of ours. Please tell your friends.
Please just hold your breath. Every door looks better when you keep it closed. Keep your head down and don't watch your step. No point in even trying now, just let it go. Maybe they will write the same for me. Maybe this was really just a dream. Don't wanna take that risk and try to see. A 9 to 5 will bring security, I'm sure, but I can guarantee you that's no way to live. Way to live. Promise that's no way to live. Way to live.
Hi, I'm Brooke Ackerman. Welcome to the first episode of our podcast.
I'm Denise Acosta and we are Prodigal Peas in a Pod. Isn't that so cute?
Notice the shirt.
Don't mind the teeth for this episode. Or lack thereof. Or rotten.
Nobody was even going to notice it. Now you called it out. Okay, so what's our podcast about, Denise?
It's about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And nothing at the same time.
Which makes it fabulous.
So we wrote something out, and it's faith, purpose, and some divinely awkward situations, helping fellow misfit and spirit-led ponderers get their hearts and minds in sync with God so that they can actually use their calling instead of just overthinking it.
I would never overthink anything.
Me neither.
That was for everybody else. That's for our listeners, not us. We have no idea what it's like to overthink. It must be really tough for you.
Yeah. Especially doing a podcast. It's totally fine, you guys. So let's talk a little bit about who we are. Brooke, why don't you tell our friends who you are?
So in a former life, I was a middle school English teacher and absolutely loved my job. And then I felt like God said, okay, 14 years, you're good. We're going to try something else, which was shocking because I loved my job and I thought I was going to do it until retirement. And then I spent 3 years being a stay-at-home dog mom, which again, fabulous. And then I decided I didn't decide. Somebody approached me about co-leading middle and high school youth ministry, which I did for 5 years. Also fabulous and loved it. And then God was like, okay, we're moving you to something else again. And now I have my own mental and emotional health coaching practice. And again,
Whoop, whoop.
3 things that I've done as careers that I've absolutely loved. And now I'm doing a podcast with the one and only Denise.
Yay. Do you find that you are a grammar Nazi?
I am not a grammar Nazi. I appreciate good grammar. I notice when punctuation is off on different things like business signs or anything that's like public facing, but I don't judge people for their mistakes. We all make mistakes, but I'm definitely aware of grammar. It's misuse of punctuation, that kind of thing. Yeah, I notice it. It's just part of being a teacher.
I can see that. I was not a teacher, but I notice not all of them, but some of them. And then when I do it to myself, I get extremely frustrated and I'll sit there like in a text and put like the correction with the star. And then I look back and I realize actually I have like 7 mistakes in what I just sent. So what's the point now? We're just going to roll with that.
Yep. Yeah. I've somewhat jokingly said that if I'm ever abducted, kidnapped, whatever, if you'll know it's not me texting if I use the letters OK for okay. Always spell it out, O-K-A-Y. If there is a misplaced comma, you know it's not me. If someone does not use the Oxford comma, it's not me.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I argue about with one of my besties. She loves the Oxford comma.
Yes. It's clear communication.
It's not necessary.
Yes, it is. It's clear communication. Do we need to break up? This is our one and only episode. We're done.
Thanks, guys.
It's been lovely. We'll talk offline about the Oxford comma.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, awesome. So I'm Denise, and for some of you that are watching or listening, you may have already met us and known us for quite a bit of time. For those that don't, I come from a baking background. Before that, I was doing international business for a while, and I got to work some cool gigs there. One of my more fun ones was working for the producers of Disney on Ice, Disney Live, and Ringling. So I had to do a lot of the merchandising on exporting. So I got to just deal with a lot of toys. And I also worked for an armoring company, and that was a lot of fun, exporting those. And then I decided that I was going to bake cupcakes, and I hated the kitchen, and they were awful. The first batch that I did, you can definitely burn box mix, and apparently creaming butter is not a myth, and I definitely thought it was for a long time. And would you believe that grew to be a lot better than I could have thought that I could ever do. And so anyway, I felt God calling me away from that about a year-ish or so ago. And with the different ministries that I'm involved in at church, I ended up putting together my own brand and recently launched that, Misfit of Creation. You've probably heard about it by now. And I've just been having a ton of fun with that. God's been working in me through a lot of the various ministries, just every day in life. And I just feel like a sponge every time I'm reading or talking to somebody. It just really lights me up. So I'm really excited to do this podcast with my friend Brooke because our personalities, let's face it, are amazing. And you're going to hear a lot of cackles and a lot of stories about us. So I hope you stay and I hope you enjoy this podcast of ours. Please tell your friends.
Okay, I have questions about Misfit of Creation, but before that, I need to know, what is your favorite flavor of cupcake?
My favorite flavor of cupcake. I am super basic, actually. Just the chocolate, but it has to be my recipe, which is more of like a darker chocolate.
Ooh.
And then my buttercream. It's a special buttercream. It's not like people ask, is it American? Is it Russian? Is it, you know what? It's none of that. It's my own recipe. And I've gotten the most compliments in the time I was doing the business was on my frosting, on my buttercream. So just that, just a chocolate cupcake with like a rose swirl on top.
I didn't know there were different nationalities of buttercream.
Yeah, and the way it's made for sure.
Okay, we're
Some very complicated kinds.
Well, I think to do our due diligence, you're going to need to make me some so that I can verify chocolate cupcake and Denise's buttercream is actually top notch.
Yes.
I think that needs to happen.
We'll bring a store-bought version.
Yes.
And
don't tell me which is which.
And you'll know right away.
I figured it was just like, be more fun to like blind taste.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. But then I either have to not look at them or I'll be able to tell just by looking at it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Which one's yours.
For sure.
Okay, well, that'll be episode 2. Stay tuned.
Well, revive the cupcake.
There we go. Yeah. I'll be able to tell the difference between grocery store and a Denise original.
I think so.
Oh, yeah. But I still think I need to make sure. I don't want to lead anyone astray.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay. We want to speak truth.
Absolutely. And eat cupcakes.
So why did we decide to do a podcast together? So I love hanging out with Brooke. You'll hear a ton of cackles and it'll all make sense. And you'll hear that word used so often and you'll just hear it being expressed. But so we met at church and that's awesome. But it wasn't until we went to Peru where I felt like, oh my gosh, I just found somebody else who gets me, right? So I'm talking movie quotes, I'm talking songs we're singing, just jokes. And I was like, oh my gosh, where have you been all my life? Peas in a pod. So yeah, naturally. Who else would I do a podcast with?
And then the Prodigal Peas part of that was that we both also realized that there are some things in our stories that are not all that bright and shiny. And some people would be like, I'm not really sure if that's okay, that's how your life went. And we're like, well, we can't really help it. These are the choices we made. And we don't shy away from that. We don't hide it. We're just really very honest about the mistakes that we've made and decisions that we wish we made differently or didn't make at all. And so the idea of, you have a place here, you belong here, you have a seat at the table with us, you are welcome here. That was the idea behind the Prodigal Peas in a Pod, is that we can all find connection points, even if our lives are very, very different from one another.
So come home, children.
Come hang out in the pod. It's very comfy. So, Denise, tell all of us what Misfit of Creation's all about. How did it start? Just give me some nitty-gritty details.
Okay. So when I started becoming intentional about my faith, I want to say it was like 4 or 5 years ago, I found that no matter kind of what group I was hanging out with, while they were accepting of me, I didn't feel like anyone could actually relate to me or my past, things that I had done, my experiences that I had had. And so when I would share about struggles, I would just kind of get a blank stare, like deer in headlights. And it was, for a while, a little bit discouraging. And then after some time, I was just kind of like, there's no way I'm the only person, right? There's no way that it's really just me. So there's got to be more of us out there. And so I wanted to hopefully reach that same crowd and just kind of encourage them in that, change the narrative on what church is. Community is so important, and it's really important to get plugged into your church, not just showing up for that 1 hour on Sunday and then, oh, that was a great sermon, and you just completely forget about it during the week, which is something I had done too for a long time. And so in order to do that, it's helpful when you have people that can relate to your story. It comes from any kind of a colorful background on things that maybe you have been made to feel ashamed of. There's no need for that here. And we welcome you and we love you. And there's always a seat in our pot for you. So that is why I put Misfit of Creation together. You'll see the pages on Facebook and Instagram. There's a ton of daily devotionals and ways to help you to be more intentional about your faith and reflect more and how to apply those lessons directly to your life. And in the shop, I have a lot of downloadable tools to dig deeper in your studies and also further you along in your journey there. So hopefully making it more accessible and a lot easier to understand and a bit more inviting and more like heart-wrenching. Or grabbing your heart. I don't know what the term is. Your heart's going to love it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Your heart is going to love it.
Yes.
How could it not?
Yeah. So that's why.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty fabulous. I've seen your stuff, so I can definitely say it's fabulous.
Thanks.
Probably right up there with the buttercream. It's buttercream for your heart.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I have a lot of cartoon Jesus in my stuff, so that don't let that make you think that these things are for children. It's definitely for adults with cartoon Jesus, because who doesn't love cartoon Jesus?
Again, buttercream for your heart.
The SoulFood ministry.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's share that story. So when I was doing the cupcake business as a baker, I'm feeding people, and I was taking a class at church, and in between on our lunch break, I was talking to one of the other attendees, really sweet older lady, and we were catching up. She's asking how the business was going, and so I told her that I had closed it and that I had started Misfit of Creation. So I'm explaining to her a little bit about it, and she goes, oh, so as before you were feeding bodies, now you're feeding souls. And I was like, what? And that is why you now see a SoulFood ministry.
That's awesome.
As my tag.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
What a fun story.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And again, another great example of the importance of community. We inspire each other. We help each other. I love that. Very cool.
Yay. Well, why don't you tell us about blueprints?
Yes, ma'am. This really goes back to when I was a middle school teacher. I would have students come to school, and you can tell there were some really rough things going on in their lives. And as much as I wanted to be able to help them with whatever that was, that's not what my job was. And so I would have to say things like, I'm really sorry that you're having such a tough time at home, or whatever the situation is, but we now have to read this novel, or we have to do this grammar lesson. And there was something in me that just always wanted to do more of the heart level work. And when I left teaching, I then was doing student ministry. And so I absolutely was able to do that with students. But there was, again, another shift where I felt like God was asking me to do that with more than just students, and not that doing it with students wasn't a worthy cause and wasn't life-giving for me, but it felt like we need to shift to include everyone. And so I was at a retreat in Colorado, and God gave me the idea of the name Blueprint, because he said we all have an original design. We all have a blueprint. And so the idea is that we often go out there looking for whatever the answer is to who we are, to make sense of the world, to make sense of who God is. And he was showing me that we don't need to go looking out there. We need to uncover all of the stuff that has gotten piled on top of our blueprint, and we can kind of like excavate the stuff that is in the way and get back down to his original design for each of us. And so that's what I do. I sit with people one-on-one, virtual, in person, and we start digging through some of the stuff that has gotten piled up and distorting the blueprint, and we get back to who God really says you are.
I love that.
Me too.
Because mine was definitely distorted and still kind of is.
Well, but that's the beauty of it, is that he's never finished with us, and not in a we are constantly needing hit, but it's more of a loving thing, a grace-filled thing, that he likes us and wants to hang out with us and wants to show us more of who he is and who he says we are. And that's what I get to do with people. That's fabulous.
I love that.
Thanks.
And I love what I do, and I love what you do.
I know.
And I think that's why this is going to be so amazing.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what's going to make the podcast, honestly, just so great, to have that kind of a perspective on things. I just think it's valuable in relating to how people can get through what they're going through, healing from that, and taking a minute to reflect on what actually is happening versus what the world's trying to tell us, and being able to hear what God's trying to tell us.
Absolutely.
I love it. What can you guys expect from the podcast? That is an excellent question that we are going to be working on as we do this together, guys. We have some ideas, and we're just open to a ton of things and how God wants to use this. So however that looks like, really, at some point, we're probably going to have some guests on.
Yes.
Chat about things. I know I definitely want to chat with some Christian entrepreneurs, because I know I would have definitely benefited from that for sure when I was doing cupcakes once upon a time.
And we both can still benefit from that.
Yeah, can absolutely still benefit from it.
And you'll hear us share our stories, and not one whole long episode of I share my story or Denise shares her story, although maybe we could.
Unless you guys want to.
Yeah. But you'll hear bits and pieces of our stories come out in conversation. And so we're interested in that too, with inviting guests on to share their stories and how God has shown up and what that has looked like. There's value in story, but it's also what can we learn from somebody else's story that then also applies to our lives.
Another reason why we had wanted to put the podcast together is so in Misfit of Creation, I myself and whoever is joining along maybe feels the same, have always felt like a misfit, right? In your group, you don't really fit in and you belong. And so you become intentional about your faith. You can fall into the trap of thinking that you need to change all these things about yourself and your personality so that you can fit this traditional mold of what it means to be a Christian. And that can be kind of heartbreaking. It is. It was. So that's something I've been working through also. But also the podcast would be then to shine a light on what it looks like to live out in your faith as who you are, because God made you, right? He gave you that personality. You're uniquely made as he wanted. You have your blueprint, and he doesn't want you to fit a specific mold that society may want you to, or the traditional views might have been.
That's good stuff.
Yay. Yeah, it'll be pretty chill conversations.
Yes, we really feel like this is for us, and you just happen to be listening in or watching, but really we're just hanging out with each other because we just have a whole lot of fun together, and you just happen to join us for our conversation. So
then I can hear my thoughts out loud, and so it organizes a bit more, and then I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. So thanks, guys.
So you might be asking yourself why, other than the fact that Denise and I are just so much fun, why should you listen or tune in to this podcast? And again, really, this is more for us than anything. And so if you want to just have some laughs, that's absolutely why you should continue to follow us and listen and watch and however it is that you consume podcasts. But we also wanted to give anyone who's deciding to join us the idea of what we're doing, and that it's not so much we're not going to do like sermons, we're not going to do a lot of teaching, this is not going to be Bible study per se. It's not that Jesus is going to be absent from these conversations, because I don't think you and I have had a conversation where we left out the idea of faith, because it's just not possible. It's just how we live our lives. It's going to be more kind of life application, but not that we're dispensing how to, or these are the next 5 steps to make your life all shiny and wonderful. Although, we wish we could do that, but we're still figuring it out for ourselves too. Facts. And so that's really what it is our experience and how that might be helpful to somebody else, and just kind of coming along for the journey. And then when we have other people on, how their journey and their story can help not only us, but whoever else is listening. And so it's going to be, how has God shown up in our lives, and what we want to share from that probably, hopefully, would benefit other people, because that's the kind of work that God is always up to, is that it's never just for us, even though it's amazing how he shows up for us individually. It's always then how our story can then have an effect on another person's life.
Solid. Rad.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I've not heard that in a long time.
Groovy.
Okay. I still say cool, which I know makes me not cool, but I don't care.
When did it stop being cool?
Oh. Okay.
No.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. I feel like I'm at the point, I don't know if you are, I'm at the point where I don't care if it's not cool. I'm just going to, these are just the things.
I am who I am.
Exactly.
We have peas.
We have peas.
All right.
We are cool.
Yeah. I don't need that validation from anybody else. I know I'm cool.
I think you're cool.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Do you think I'm cool?
Very cool.
Okay, I can't believe I had to ask.
Ice cold. So yeah, this is just like our intro video, right? So you guys can get to meet us, and we can tell you guys kind of what we are hopefully trying to do with this. And we're definitely going to have a lot of fun with it, and I hope you will too. So there will be ways to watch us on various platforms, and I think we're looking at YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You'll be able to find those links after the clip, wherever we decide to put it. Maybe it's going to be on the screen as I'm talking, if I can figure that out, or just on a screen after this cuts out. Mm-hmm. But definitely like and subscribe and follow and share and all of those things that you can do on social medias. Mm-hmm. And yeah, thanks.
So hopefully you'll tune in again, and this won't be just the one episode. Hopefully we'll see you for future episodes, and thanks for hanging out with us.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to our podcast, Prodigal Peas in a Pod. I'm not sure how you found us today, but just want to make sure you know all the platforms we are on, and those are Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Amazon Music.
And if you would like to reach us directly, you can send us an email at prodigalpeas@gmail.com.
So since this podcast is a merge of both of our brands, mine is Misfit of Creation, and if you're looking to get more information on that, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, and the Etsy shop, which is where you can find all those downloadable tools and products.
And if you'd like to find out more about my coaching practice, you can find me at blueprintheartandmind.com, where I have a blog, totally free. Come check it out. And you can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. See you next time.
Bye.
I think I get it now. I need to be myself, because a copycat can only do so well. In love with everything that makes me who I am. Don't need a backup plan. I hope they understand that I'm doing better today. I got me a mission, I got some fruition. You down to stay out the way. Can't seek validation from people who hating. I got my mentality straight. Shout out to God, I've been keeping the first. He's been working and paving the way. And now I can guarantee you that's the way to live. Way to live. Promise that's the way to live. Way to live. Promise that's the way to live. Way to live.
Tune in next week when my pea gets teeth.
Well, can you even tell?
I don't know. I mean, I guess on this one. Maybe not on this one. I've had my hand here for a while.
Maybe if they compare, direct comparison, that mine has teeth. Yours has teeth. It's just it played hockey last night.
Yeah. Or is currently still.
Right. Yeah, needs to go to the dentist. Anyway, okay. We good?
I think so.
Okay, great.
Yay.